this is Haley, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my OCD story. So, moment of honesty here, I actually have filmed this video before, like last week, and I hated how it turned out. So I'm gonna start over, and this time I'm gonna really try to stick to just OCD. I was talking a lot about my medications and my psychologists and psychiatrists and therapists last video, or the last time I filmed it. So I want to try to not go into those topics, because if you guys want to see a video on my psychologist experiences or my medication experiences, I can do a separate video on that because it'll take a long time to explain all of it. So yeah, this video is just gonna be my OCD, how I struggle with it, my symptoms, and stuff like that. So I'm gonna explain a little bit about what OCD is, as there's a lot of stigma around OCD. People think OCD is strictly I want to be organized type person, but actually OCD is a very severe and crippling disorder, and I just kind of want to explain that a little bit. So OCD stands for Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, and so pretty much what it is a disorder that makes you have obsessions. Sometimes those obsessions make you do a compulsion. So it's kind of hard for me to explain this, but I hope throughout this video it kind of makes more sense. So I'm just gonna give an example of one of my obsessions that I've had almost my whole life. So I am very scared of becoming sick, of throwing up. So that is one of my main obsessions that my OCD has targeted since I was little. So I used to have the obsession where, like, I felt something weird in my stomach, or I didn't even feel anything at all, and all of a sudden I would just like obsess, oh my goodness, I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna throw up, I know I'm gonna throw up, and I would psych myself up into this panicking state, which then, now that I'm panicking, I feel more sick. So that was my obsession. I was obsessed over things that weren't even true, and then sometimes it would lead to a compulsion. So then when I was younger, my compulsion was to go tell my mom that I felt sick, and I would need her to reassure me that I was not going to throw up. So yeah, that was, I don't really have that compulsion as much anymore, but I still have the obsession. It's getting better, definitely better than when I was younger, but I still have it, and it's probably my worst one. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and get started on my story. So I was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome when I was 8, and Tourette's comes with comorbid conditions like OCD, ADHD, anxiety, depression, and other stuff that I don't know the names of. So I personally have OCD, which is a comorbid condition of my Tourette's syndrome. So some people can have OCD without having Tourette's, like they're not necessarily always linked. But if you have Tourette's, it's very, very common that you do have an anxiety disorder like OCD. So yeah, I was diagnosed the next year after I was diagnosed with Tourette's. I was diagnosed with OCD, and when I was younger, this discovery, or this diagnosis, was actually the hardest on me, because this was the one that affected my life the most. So yeah, my OCD was definitely the worst out of that, and I had extreme anxiety. It was to the point where I couldn't leave my home without my parents. I couldn't do anything. I've always been an anxious person, so I guess the main obsession I had was throwing up, but I do remember other ones that I would get. Part of OCD is some people get these things called intrusive thoughts. These are violent or sexual images that play in your head and make you obsess over them, and it's very distressing and causes you a lot of anxiety. So I have had intrusive thoughts since I was little, and I didn't even know what was going on. I would just have these images of men coming up to me and like kind of touching me in places that wasn't appropriate, and it really terrified me to the point where to this day I struggle with, you know, relationships with men because of it, just because the obsession is so bad that whenever I see a man, I get these obsessions of him like coming towards me and, you know, touching me and doing stuff. So it's definitely not a pleasant thing at all, and it doesn't only happen with people I don't know, it happens with people I do know too. So I definitely have always struggled with sitting next to guys, old or young, doesn't matter. I struggle like talking to them and stuff, so that's definitely a very distressing obsession that I've had, and it's definitely one that I haven't mentioned to a lot of people, as I don't want people to think I don't like them because they're a male, like, because that's not the case. I love my family, I love my friends, and guys and girls. It's just I have OCD, and this OCD makes me have this thing, and I want to work through it, and I want to do stuff like that. So having more relationships with guys is a very good thing. So yeah, that's one of the hard ones that I had. And then when I was little, I remember having compulsions and not knowing. I didn't know it was a compulsion at the time. I was too young to understand. But I remember this very distinct time. I was in bed, and I had a loft bed, so I was like up in the air, and I had a clock on my windowsill that was like below the bed. And I remember when I was trying to fall asleep, I kept having to sit up and look at the clock to make sure I knew exactly what time it was, because for some reason I was obsessed. I need to know what time it is, I need to know what time it is, and I just couldn't turn it off. So literally for like minutes I kept sitting up and laying down, sitting up and laying down, going over and over and over again, and I just couldn't stop because my obsession was I needed to know what the time was, and it was really distressing. I remember just crying and being like yelling for my parents because I didn't know it was wrong. I felt like, I don't know, I didn't even know it was happening. So yeah, that was definitely very hard. So when I was younger, I did go and see a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and I got on medication, went through therapy, but I can talk about that in a separate video because it's a whole nother topic. But it did help me when I was younger, and a lot of my symptoms, they didn't disappear, but it was lifted greatly. And when I was, you know, through probably the beginning of high school, junior high, I did really well. Like I definitely had my obsessions and compulsions still, but it was way less, and I was doing very well. That was actually a very good time for my Tourette syndrome as well, if you saw my Tourette's video. And then end of high school-ish, I started getting a lot worse again. So one of the hard things I had was driving. As you guys know, my Tourette's does affect my driving a lot, but also my OCD affects my driving a ton too. I'll just be driving down the road and I'll all of a sudden see this like intrusive thought of me like swerving and killing myself by hitting a tree. And it's definitely something I would never, ever, ever do, but that's what OCD does. It sends you intrusive thoughts of, you know, self-harm or other people harming you, sexual thoughts. It's just thoughts that disgust you the most just get played in your head, and it's very distressing, and it causes you a lot of anxiety. So I've had panic attacks in the car because of it, because I freak out thinking I'm gonna go in the ditch, I'm going to die, but when reality is just my OCD, you know, messing with me. But yeah, that's definitely something that was hard. So about last summer, I had a situation where I was forced to get off my medication that was for my OCD, and that really, really hurt me. It was a really hard time. My OCD and my Tourette's and my compulsions and obsessions just went through the roof. It was awful. I started getting a lot more like panic attacks over throwing up again. I would wake up in the middle of the night freaking out. I also like stopped eating. Like I didn't like stop eating, but it became so bad that when I ate, I thought I was gonna be sick. So I wouldn't eat because I didn't want to get sick. And that caused me to lose way too much weight that wasn't healthy for me. And I still struggle with, you know, eating and stuff because I've always struggled with this. When I was younger, I won't drink certain drinks. I won't drink juice. I won't drink anything but water pretty much because it makes my stomach feel a little weird, and that makes me think I'm gonna be sick, which it won't. And I also struggle with eating certain cookies or like muffins or donuts, anything like that, I don't eat because it makes me feel sick. So I have always been really picky with my food, but it got a lot worse when my medication, when I was off of it. So that was really hard, and I also started getting a lot of compulsions that I still have, and it's driving me insane. A lot of them have to do over my rabbits. If you guys didn't know, I do have a channel for my rabbits, and I show like rabbit care and stuff. So one of my obsessions is that they're going to die or that they're going to become sick. So it's gotten to the point where it disrupts my sleeping a lot because I now have this compulsion that's like a routine that I have to do every night. So before I go to bed, I have to go in the rabbit room, close the door, make sure it's closed, and then I have to stare like at each individual rabbit to make sure they're breathing and moving. And then I have to like slam on my door, like on my bedroom door, to make sure it's closed so that the rabbits won't escape. And then I have to go to the refrigerator door and make sure that is closed. And sometimes I have to check my closet doors and make sure they're closed. And then I can go up and go to bed. But then if I hear a noise or I hear something like, I don't know, the rabbit like ran or jumped or something, I start obsessing. What if they just died? What if they just did this? Or what if they're sick? And even though I just checked on them 5 minutes ago, I have to get out of bed, go downstairs, and do the whole thing over again. I have to make sure my door is closed. Sometimes I have to hit it multiple times. I have to stare at each rabbit, and then I have to make sure the refrigerator door is closed. And sometimes I have to do it multiple times, like in a row, like I have to go through the whole process again. So yeah, that's definitely something really new for me because my compulsions have never really been that bad before, and I realize that other people have really bad compulsions, but I've mostly struggled with obsessions through my OCD, but my compulsions are just getting really bad to the point where I just, sometimes I'm out of bed like 3 or 4 times before I can go to sleep, and that's definitely hard for me because I used to be really good at, you know, falling asleep and stuff. So that's kind of an overview of like my obsessions and compulsions and stuff. I do struggle with a lot of anxiety as well, which comes from OCD, but anxiety also comes from Tourette's, and anxiety can also just be an anxiety disorder on its own. So yeah, I definitely didn't cover like all my anxiety symptoms, mostly just the obsessions and compulsions. But if you guys want to see a video on my medication history, like, I don't know if I'll tell you like what I've taken or like how it helped or, you know, stuff like that, because I did have a very rough situation recently where I got serotonin syndrome, so I can go through a video on that if you'd like to see that. And then I also could make a video on my experience with therapy, counselors, and psychologists and psychiatrists. I will give you a fair warning that my experience has not been good with them so far. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. Let me know if you have any video requests down below. If you have any further questions on OCD or how OCD affects me, let me know. If you have like certain questions you want me to do a video on, that'd be good as well. And if you guys want me to do like a Q&A where you can just ask questions, also ask that down below. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys soon on a new video. Bye! My name is Haley. I am 18 years old and was born and raised in north central Wisconsin. I now currently reside in the northern parts of the state by a beautiful lake, and I have Tourette's syndrome.